o'clock, and we're now going to be talking about another very, very important matter, and that is on a femicide, something we kind of don't take seriously enough, I think. And when I say that, it's not flippant, but merely because we don't hear about femicide in our communities. We kind of think it happens perhaps in very marginalized communities. So maybe we just don't pay enough attention to this issue on femicide. Maybe it is happening within our communities, but we haven't heard about it. So we are blissfully unaware about this very heinous crime. To talk to us about femicide is Kerryn Rehse. She is an advocacy specialist at MOSAIC. Kerryn, good morning. Welcome to the program. Or is it good afternoon now?
It's good afternoon. I mean, these days are going by so quickly that you wouldn't know. But yes, good afternoon, Julie. Lovely to be here with you and your listeners.
Likewise. Tell us a little bit about MOSAIC. What is it all about?
So MOSAIC is an organization that works on responding to both domestic violence, but also to sexual violence, and really looks at providing a full set of services to those who experience sexual and domestic violence. And that includes counseling, it includes follow-up services, it includes providing places of safety, as well as education at a community level, and then working with governments to make sure we have laws and responses that are to the needs of survivors. And just a little bit, the organization is over 30 years old, so we've been doing this for a really long time, but really grateful to media houses like yourself for shining a spotlight on this, especially as we've just come out of Women's Month as well.
So are you an NPO, NGO?
Yes, we are a non-profit organization or a non-governmental organization, and we obviously work alongside other community-based organizations as well as government to provide the services that we do.
And where are you based?
We are based predominantly in the Western Cape, so a large footprint of our services are in the Western Cape, but we also provide court support services in KZN, mainly around the Durban area, and then as well as in Pretoria.
Okay, the topic of the discussion today is a piece of paper wasn't enough. And that carries a hell of a lot of weight. And I mean, it is so powerful because when if people are wondering, what is this that we're talking about? A piece of paper wasn't enough. We are talking protection orders, are we not? So can you also, elaborate on protection orders and also shed light on how common it is for femicide victims to have obtained a protection order prior to their deaths? What is the data telling us?
So let me first start off with what a protection order is. So it may be known as an interdict that was under the previous legislation, but it's known as a domestic violence protection order. And this is it's a civil process that someone can approach a magistrate's court and can apply for a protection order against someone who is committing acts of violence against them. But it's a very specific relationship. It needs to be either family by blood or by marriage, or it needs to be a past or present intimate partner. So these are the people who may be using violence against you, and violence doesn't have to only be physical. We also look at any acts of verbal or psychological abuse, emotional abuse, and also anything else that can control or coerce you to do something against your will. And these acts of violence are protected under the Domestic Violence Act. And when you go to a court to apply for a protection order, the magistrate will read your affidavit and will make a decision whether or not to grant you an interim order. And that interim order gives the court an opportunity to inform the person who is abusing you, give them an opportunity to come to court, present their side of the story, and then the court get to decide on whether you get a final order or not. Now, just for your listeners, the interim order is just as good as a final order. It's just temporary. So you get it on the day that you apply or a day after you apply, and it stays in place until that final court date. But it operates exactly the same as a final protection order. And the protection order really it's an instruction from the court that tells the person who's abusing you what they cannot or what they should do. And when they violate those actions, that is when the person who holds the protection order has full right to go to the police and say, my protection order has been violated. You need to make an arrest. And the person is then arrested and informed to be in court. And once they're in court, that's when it goes into a criminal matter, because now they have broken a court order. So in short, that's what a domestic violence protection order is. But what I would love to do is to share with you after this a link that you can share with your listeners to some detailed information that MOSAIC has around protection orders that is accessible through our website.
I'm kind of wondering, sure.
Yes.
What role does law enforcement play once a protection order is issued? And is that response adequate or consistent in practice? Because I've heard of many cases where women bemoan the fact that SAPs do not take them seriously enough. So they go to SAPs and say, I have a protection order. My husband is abusing me. Please do something. And they either dismiss you or, kind of, I'm not sure what the legal process is. Can they pick up the abuser, your husband or your partner, lock him up, overnight? What happens? Because a woman goes to the police station for protection with this protection order. Whatever happens thereafter, in many instances, she reconciles with her partner. And in a lot of instances, it's because he's financially maintaining her and she's afraid that she may lose that, that means of support.
So maybe I see you raising two areas there, two really important areas. So maybe if I can deal with the economic dependence first, and then I'll go on to law enforcement. So what I would like to share with your listeners, and maybe one of the most important pieces of information I often share on these media platforms, is that a protection order does not affect the person who's abusing you unless they go against what's on the protection order. So in a criminal check, in any sort of check that needs to be done for jobs or anything else, that protection order will not be picked up. The only time it becomes an issue is if they violate the protection order. Then it becomes a criminal matter. So
Can I just interrupt you here? I think this is very important, which means that if I take out a protection order against my partner because he's been abusive towards me, there won't be anything on his record, whether he wants to apply for a position, whether he's going for credit, or whether he wants to fly abroad. There won't be nothing. As long as he doesn't violate the protection order. Once a violation is in place and he appears in court, I presume that's how it folds out. He then appears in court. Whether the case is dismissed, whether he's found guilty or not, he now has a criminal record. Does that make sense? No.
Okay, so your first part is 100% correct, that this will not show up anywhere. And this is what, in my mind, makes the domestic violence protection order such a powerful piece of protection, because it is something that you have almost in your back pocket. It's an insurance plan. If something happens, then I get to use this. Where there is a violation, it goes into court, but it has to be prosecuted. So the prosecutor has to get a successful conviction for there to be a protection, for there to be a criminal record. So even while it's in court, it's the act of that person being held accountable, and not always does it lead to conviction, but it does go through the justice process. But only once there's a successful conviction will it land up on a criminal record.
I think even the fact that there isn't a conviction, the fact that the lady has seen fit to take the matter to court, to report the matter, indicates to the partner or the abuser that I am serious.
Yes.
Stop now, enough. We need to go to normality, whatever that means, or whatever sort of assistance, therapy, support, therapy, counseling that they need to go into as a couple, or he needs to undergo for his behavior to change.
Mm.
Gosh, very, very interesting
So,
and very, ve-
yeah, Julie, if
carry
I
on.
could, just to build on that, and that is one of the reasons why at MOSAIC, we really do encourage people who obtain protection orders to not withdraw the protection order. And we would rather do more education around for those people who are on the receiving end of a protection order to say, this is almost your warning sign to say, hey, your partner is afraid. So let's work on how you don't violate that rather than pressurizing this person to withdraw. Because often what happens is if you go and withdraw, you don't want to go back to the court and now say, oh, this is happening again. And there's a shame aspect to it. So we encourage that you actually maintain that. Also, one final thing on the protection order before I go into law enforcement is that you're right. I may have a disagreement and it turns violent with my partner. And I say, I don't want him in my home. He must go find somewhere else to stay. But we do make up. And now I do want him to come back into my home. You can approach the court and actually ask that your protection order, that there's a variation, that they just remove the component that he's not allowed in your home. You don't have to cancel your protection order. And that's important for community members to know that this is something, it doesn't expire, it's with you for life. So really think carefully before you withdraw those protection
Okay,
orders.
let's go for an ad break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the law regarding this matter, particularly SAPs and how they deal with these type of issues when they present it with it.
Perfect.
Penny Appeal's Education First campaign helps children to get access to quality education.
I'm 14 years old. When I grow up, I'd like to be a scientist.
We believe every child belongs at school,
And we want education, a better education.
learning and dreaming their way to a better future. With your help, we can provide classrooms, desks, stationery packs, and school shoes. Help make these dreams a reality. Visit www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
You South African, of course. You anxious about the future. We've got you covered. Build on your wealth portfolio with Rendry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange. Visit us at 151 Stephen Dlamini Road, Musgrave, Durban, or call us on 031-202-4700 for more information. Rendry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange, your passport to gold investment.
Dad, these Frymax chips are so tasty.
Wow, that really takes me back. My dad bought me a Frymax chips every day after school. They were my favorite when I was your age as well. Quality is at the very heart of what we do. And that's why we ensure that every Frymax packet is filled with the beautiful goodness and flavor-packed taste that you've come to expect from us since 1982. Frymax, from generation to generation.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. We're talking with Kerryn Rehse. She's an advocacy specialist at MOSAIC. We're talking about when a piece of paper wasn't enough. Protection orders and femicide. Welcome back, Kerryn. And you now want to talk about the law. When, you carry on.
Thank you so much, Julie. So maybe let me start by what should happen. So you've gone to the court, you've obtained a protection order, and you're quite right, it is a piece of paper. But you obtain your protection order, and that really indicates to the police that you have a court order, that if the person in the court order has done something that they're prohibited from doing, that the police are now mandated to actually address the situation with the abuser. So what should happen is you go, something's happening, you either phone the police or you go to the police, depending on the situation. And when the police arrive or you arrive at the police station, you provide them with a copy of the protection order. And based on that, they need to determine whether they arrest or whether they issue a notice to appear in court. And this is still up to the police to make this determination, which is not ideal. But the way that it works, that is, if there is currently the person is right next to the person they're abusing, they're threatening them, this person is not safe, then the police are mandated to arrest. And they cannot just spend the night. They actually, once they go into court, into the police cells, they have to appear in court. The police are not allowed to withdraw that charge. Only the prosecution can withdraw that charge. So that's something important to note. So you can't, the police have said many times that families will come and say, we just want to warn them. Police actually can't do that anymore for domestic violence. And then the person would go and appear in court, and so the process would unfold. But what you quite rightly said is that there are instances where somebody would approach the police and say, I have a protection order, it has been violated, I need you to act. And there are instances where either the police come hours, if not days later, or they actually tell you, this is not serious, go back to the family, sort it out. Do you really want to have your partner locked up? I mean, these are some of the stories that we've heard. And in that instance, it's important that your listeners know their right to action. And so what I would do in that instance, if I'm at the police station, is to actually demand, and I use that word quite deliberately, demand to speak to a senior official. So whether it is the station commander or the visible policing commander, or each police station actually has a gender-based violence specialist officer on duty 24 hours a day. So I would actually advise your listeners to know that and be able to go, actually, no, I'm not accepting what you say at the front desk. I know my rights and they need to be enforced. Because what we do see is that we see two things. One, either law enforcement don't respond as they should, and it lands up with more serious injury, or women actually withdrawing the protection order because they're saying, what is the point of having this? It's easier if I just don't, because maybe he will bother me less, or they will bother me less, or ultimately we see femicide. And that's the most ultimate form of violence.
Mm-hmm. And we are seeing more and more femicide in the country, are we not? So when a woman is murdered, despite having a protection order, in your view, who should be held accountable apart from the perpetrator, of course? And is accountability ever pursued?
So it's really, it's actually such a difficult question to actually answer, because I think there's multiple factors at play. So the one part is, if there is a law enforcement failure, so if there's a failure on the side of the police, that needs to be taken forward. And there have been instances where that's been taken forward through the Independent Police Directorate, and there has been disciplinary action taken. So we have seen cases like that. On the other end, we can't downplay the role of family and community when it comes to relational violence. And what we do see a lot is this encouragement for the complainant or the person holding the protection order to not pursue criminal charges, because they will either the entire family loses out on that income, or it can bring shame to a family name. So we need to, I think, look at it from both sides. The one is, if there's a deliberate failure on the side of the law, there must be accountability. But if it is on the other side, we need a lot more awareness raising and a lot more conscientizing around community and family in how best to support someone who's experiencing this violence. Because one of the things you asked, what is the data showing us? And I think this is one of the things where we really lack. We don't do enough to find out of those women who have lost their lives, whether they did actually have protection orders in place. And we do see in some instances there are women who had protection orders and had withdrawn them. And a lot of that came from pressure from family, friends, community. But then we also see instances where women did have protection orders, but actually never enforced them. So it didn't actually go to law enforcement. So they quite literally died with a protection order in their bag. And we don't know whether that's from not knowing how to enforce it, or whether it was, I don't know if I'm going to make this worse if I enforce it. So I think it's such a challenge, but I think it's one of those things, like you rightly said at the beginning, we need to talk more about it. We don't like talking about, we see so much violence, we see so much death, we don't like talking about it. But simple changes and simple support mechanisms can really change the outcome for a woman whose perhaps last day is today.
Undoubtedly, you've been involved in this type of work for a very long time. So what sort of proven and emerging strategies, legal, social, or community-based, that can better protect women before it's too late? Are you seeing these type of strategies coming to the fore?
So most definitely, I've been involved in this work for just over 15 years. And of course, as I mentioned, MOSAIC has been doing this work for 30 years, 30 plus years. And so through the years, you learn, and you really learn from society, you learn from the communities you're involved in. And the one key lesson that MOSAIC has taken away from these 30 years is that the laws are one thing, and we need the laws to direct the response. But actually, the change happens at a very local community-based level. So one of the things that we are finding to work, and we are busy strengthening systems at a local level, is through what we call our safe platforms. And this really brings together community leaders. And when I say community leaders, we're talking about faith-based leaders, sports coaches, anyone that's really working and respected within a community, together with service providers. So they can be NGOs, community-based organizations, as well as government service providers at a very local level, bringing them together and saying, what is working? What isn't? What are the complaints? How do we fix it at a local level that we have response and prevention here? And that we're finding to work really well, because what it means is that if I'm having a problem at Durban Central Police Station, for instance, I'm able to then say, I have a SAPS member in the SAFE platform, and sorry, just a caveat, we don't actually have a SAFE platform in Durban yet, and we're hoping to have one soon. But if we did, it would very much be, I can go straight to the GBV person at that police station and say, hey, we've had a problem. And because we all work together, there's a level of local accountability. And that has worked really, really well. The other thing we find to work really well is through education, and not only education that MOSAIC provides, but education through community leaders again. So working with religious leaders and community figures that carry influence, and have them actually preach the same message that we are, makes a really big difference in having people understand what is a protection order, how does it work, what are the responsibilities. Because when you walk into a space and you know your rights, you get very different service than when you don't know that the information you're getting is incorrect. So local-based interventions work really well, but also the law needs local communities to speak up, because we can't have laws that don't speak to the reality. And so MOSAIC has really tried to position itself to say, what is happening at a local level and how do we bring that to our decision makers? And once we perfect that, I think we'll see a much better response from both law enforcement, the justice system, but even from a preventative point of view, looking at the programs we have in place for young people, for employment. All of that intersects, and we're trying to do that at a very local level. I hope that answers your
Wonderful news
question.
indeed. But let's wrap up now. My final question is, what urgent reforms would you recommend to ensure that protection orders truly serve as a shield rather than a piece of paper?
Thank you for that question. I love it. One thing I would say, we do not need more laws. Our laws are good and they are sound, really good. They're internationally renowned, our laws. Where our challenge comes in is how it's implemented and how it's implemented consistently across every community, available to every person. So the reforms that we really need is to have purpose-led budget allocations and resourcing of community law enforcement and programs. Currently, some of our police stations, I know there was one police station in Cape Town a few weeks ago. There was one van at night and 3 police officers on duty. How do they respond to every crime? So these are the things that get decided at a national level, that these are the resources we allocate, but actually the demand is so much more. So the reform we need is really a budgetary and a resource reform to make sure we have the right resources in the right place to meet people, so that people are able to feel safe, not only in their communities, but in their homes and in their relationships.
Absolutely. Kerryn Rehse, MOSAIC advocacy consultant, talking to us about protection orders. And of course, the punchline there was, a piece of paper wasn't or isn't enough. And that, of course, relates to protection orders. So thank you indeed. Keep up the great work. And hopefully we'll talk again sometime in the future.
Thanks so much, Julian. Thanks to your listeners. Have a great day.
And you. It is exactly 12:30, and we are going to be covering our final interview of the morning, another serious issue, and it's all about women. I did say that to you this morning, didn't I? And we're going to be talking about the NISA Institute for Women's Development. But first, let's pay the rent, and then we'll be back with you in a minute or two.